There are plenty of articles and videos out there about installing an EV charger or electric car charger at your home for your own use. But what about for us rental property owners? What about for short-term rental Airbnbs or even hotels or multifamily buildings? I want to talk about some benefits of installing EV chargers in those properties as a real estate investor. So let's get into it. And to share a little bit about where I'm coming from on this, I'm an EV driver myself. For 3.5 years, I've had a Tesla Model 3, and I've also renovated 2 full net zero homes where that included efficiency and solar, enough to power the house and the electric car 100%. I lived in them myself while I was doing the renovation projects, and then when I moved out, I turned them into long-term and short-term rentals. So I have some experience from the rental property owner perspective as well. My name is Aaron Shine, and I'm the founder of Attainable Home, where we combine affordable real estate and practical sustainability to increase your wealth and well-being. And as I go through the list, nothing has more importance than the other. You could just take each one as you need and apply it to your own situation because everybody's different. So the first benefit I'll talk about is lower vacancy. I've experienced this both as a rental property owner and also as an EV driver myself, renting out Airbnbs and so forth, especially with short-term rentals and Airbnbs taking a hit recently and their vacancy rates are climbing. This is just another feature or differentiator that you can install on the property to go after a smaller subset of EV owners who quite honestly have a higher income as well with the way that the current EV cars are priced compared to regular cars. You're just increasing the likelihood that you'll get more bookings, especially if renters have an EV. And when I finished my first affordable net zero home project in Florida, I put it on Zillow, and literally within one day, 24 hours, a nice couple from up north had signed the lease. We did a FaceTime walkthrough, but I had advertised that it was solar, had an EV charger, had everything buttoned up to be fully net zero. And for a lot of people who either care about the environment and or have an EV car that they have and want to plug into a fast charger in the garage, it's pretty much a done deal. So whether you have a long-term or short-term rental that you want to rent out, this helps in both scenarios. And also to clarify what I'm specifically talking about in terms of installing an EV charger, we're talking about level 2 chargers that run on 40, 50, or 60 amp breakers. What that means in real life, like as a Tesla Model 3 owner myself, you can plug the charger into a regular 120 volt outlet and you might get 4 to 5 miles per hour on the charge. But if you have a level 2 charger at home, again on a 40, 50, 60 amp breaker, you can charge around 30 miles per hour, which is 6 times the speed. And what that realistically means is that whether you're renting an Airbnb, you can plug in overnight and have a full battery charge on a road trip. Or if you commute a lot, you're using hundreds of miles a day maybe, and you need to charge more or less every day or every working day. So that level 2 charger becomes critical if you're driving a lot. So that's what I mean specifically by an EV charger and having that high voltage, fast power so you can charge at 5 to 6 times the speed as a regular outlet. And the second potential benefit is either higher nightly rates or higher monthly rates. I've certainly experienced this on my 2 homes that I did, whether it be shorter term or longer term. Again, because people have EVs, this is almost a critical component to the house, especially if you drive a lot one way or another. So on Airbnbs, like in my own experience as an Airbnb renter on road trips, I'm specifically checking the boxes on Airbnb, VRBO, even Craigslist, I believe, has a checkbox for EV chargers now. I'm not sure about Zillow, but you can select homes that specifically have EV chargers because, again, those of us who have EVs know what it's like to charge, especially in areas that, in the case of Tesla, doesn't have a supercharger, or if you have a non-Tesla, I think that's even a bit more of a pain right now to charge when you don't have superchargers. So as a renter, again, whether it be short-term or long-term, you look specifically for homes or properties that have EV chargers, even hotels, and you're willing to pay a little bit higher rate for that sometimes depending on your needs, especially on a road trip. Hands down, I would personally pay more nightly rate for an EV charger. And when I'm traveling around in the Tesla myself, especially with Airbnbs, I'm specifically messaging the property owner or the manager to see if there's just a regular 120-volt outlet plug somewhere around the front porch or near where I can park, because I carry around a 50-foot cable just to trickle charge the car overnight. And even on a road trip where you can put 40 or 50 miles on the battery overnight, even in colder weather, I mean, that's huge and saves you a lot of time charging at the fast chargers on the highway and so forth. So again, we seek these out when we're renting properties. And for you homeowners or rental property investors who don't have electric cars yet, I went and grabbed the cables out of my Tesla so you could see what we're all rolling around with on these road trips. This is what is called the Tesla Mobile Connector, and it comes with a 20-foot cable, but it's a really slick system because it has adapters that you can plug in. In my case, you can see there's a 1450p NEMA 1450 plug side adapter, and then also a 120 volt just regular outlet adapter, and you can plug that into the top of this connector and plug into multiple devices. So again, on the 120 volt side regular plug, you're only going to get 4 to 5 miles per hour of charging, and then with the bigger connectors for the 220, 240 volt plugins, you can get 25, 30 or more miles per hour on the charge. So this is a great connector, and we all are driving around with these. In addition, there's the Tesla to J1772 adapter, which we all need to plug into regular adapters. So the Tesla superchargers and stuff are different plugs than regular electric cars. So we need this extra adapter to plug into regular EV adapters, which is the J1772 standard in the United States for pretty much all EVs. And when I DIY'd my own EV charger on the first net zero renovation I did, I installed a 1450 receptacle side. Again, I put the links in the below so you can see exactly what I use. But I also bought an NLX Level 2 charger, Juicebox 40. And back then it was $500 to $600. There are less expensive ones online all over the place now, but that was a pretty slick system. And the reason I went for a regular J1772 level 2 charger with a cable to plug into the 1450R is that I think only about 50% of EVs sold are Tesla, and that could increase or decrease over time. But I just wanted to be able to include anyone with an EV because, again, it's easier for us Tesla owners to just use our adapter and plug into any charger. So I wanted to include all potential renters. For the next benefit, I didn't really think about this or have it on my radar, but it was really about the amount of pleasant people that showed up who are interested in this kind of project, meaning net zero, solar home, houses with EV chargers, and kind of all of it wrapped into one. It could be about sustainability. It could be about tech nerding out on stuff or just forward thinking. I really ran into great groups of people. And not only that, I found that as a landlord, we really got along well together. Of course, you want to treat your renters with respect and don't become a slumlord, hopefully. But it felt like we were kind of on the same side. When you take care of your own property, and especially if people are interested in, again, sustainability, net zero, or nice renovated homes, I found people who were on our same side, and we kind of worked together as a team to take care of the property instead of a lot of contentious relationships between landlords and renters, and even avoiding some of those disaster fallouts where you need to evict people and they destroy your property. That's worst case scenario. But I really, over a few years of renting these homes now, have had a pleasant experience with the kind of people that show up that want this type of home. I mentioned differentiating yourself before, but for the next benefit, I want to talk a little bit more about marketing, especially when it's harder now. My understanding is Airbnb sort of had a little fallout since last summer. It ebbs and flows, of course. It depends on your specific property location, all that stuff, and what you're offering. But from a marketing perspective, again, going back to being able to have EV charger checkboxes on these specific listings, you can advertise this, whether you do solar, some other green or net zero features. It all goes into differentiating your property or your offering. And essentially it's a competition thing. If you can differentiate and become a cool property or something different, people will gravitate towards that to experience that, in addition to all the practical reasons I mentioned before. The next benefit I wanted to talk about is if the renters might stay in your home longer. And this reduces vacancy, it reduces turnover, overhead, management time and fees. And if your renter loves the house and again is really there partly for the level 2 EV charger, then they're likely to stay in the home longer because your property is differentiated, at least right now, and one of probably the few in town that's a rental and that has an EV charger. And again, this is whether you have a single family, multifamily, hotel, Airbnb, short term. It's kind of where we are in the timeline of EV adoption. So renters are likely to stay in your home longer. For the next benefit, I wanted to talk about being eco-friendly or sustainable with your rental property. Now, I know this can be a sore subject, even a much debated topic, because the fact is that unless you're powering the EV with renewable energy, whether it be on-site or off-site, then you're not being that green realistically. And I fully understand that rental properties, whether it be single family, Airbnbs, multifamily, whatever, it's about money. And I've been in sustainability my whole career, going on 20 years now. I've been in commercial projects and residential and renovations and all kinds of things. I've often seen that projects don't happen unless they pencil or if they make money on paper. So I like to really focus on money and then have the green happen anyway when the projects pencil, and that's just the reality we live in. So as a property owner, it kind of depends on whether you pay the electric bill or if your tenants do, but here's some ways you can go green. I've found in my projects, first, you start with energy efficiency. There's a correct decision tree to go through instead of doing one-off projects, and then usually you can do solar last. So if you do solar on site, you can get an ROI there. There are a ton of rebates and tax credits around the country. I help a lot of clients with these kind of projects where oftentimes the ROI on these efficiency or solar projects, again, depending on who pays the electric bill more or less and some other variables, the ROI on energy efficiency and solar is actually higher than your entire property ROI as if you just had a regular rental and didn't do any of this stuff. And then you can factor in the lower vacancy potential, the higher monthly rates, or the higher daily or nightly rates that you can charge for having EV chargers there and who shows up renting the properties. There's a lot of variables, but there are ways to do this where everybody wins along the way and the result is being environmental at the same time when you do these projects correctly. And whether or not a lot of these efficiency or renewable projects make sense on site, there are other ways to go about it, like community solar or buying renewable energy credits to offset your fossil fuel usage on site. That can be another marketing aspect of this, but also some cities, counties, even federal might actually mandate a lot of this stuff on a property level, depending on where you are. And so even though you might not like it, this stuff will come up one way or another. So it's good to maybe stay ahead of it. But again, just think of all the other benefits of doing this. In the meantime, you'll be way ahead of a lot of other properties. And there are many other benefits to talk about, but to cap it off for this one, I wanted to talk about increased property value. If you're just selling a regular home, for instance, that could be a nice feature for the buyer. If they have an EV car, they're certainly going to pay attention to that. The amount of home value increase will certainly depend and may not even be an issue, but in this market where the real estate market is softening at the moment, that means maybe it's less days on market. You can sell your house over the one down the street because they don't need to mess with hiring an electrician and all this stuff. So that could be a benefit there. I think on the multifamily side, hotels or commercial or even Airbnb side, where you can point specifically to higher total revenue through the year, either through increased vacancy, higher nightly, weekly, or monthly rates, it goes directly to the bottom line. And even in soft expenses or maybe tertiary expenses like less maintenance, less wear on the property, again, you get a certain type of clientele that shows up that's an EV driver, higher potential income, all that stuff. Again, it is a little bit subjective. It's property dependent, location dependent, all that stuff. But it's possible that you'll see this in the bottom line when you go to sell the property. And we know how important the net ROI of the property is, or the net NOI or net operating income of commercial properties are with this stuff. So I think it does nothing but help that for a relatively small investment. And this is for another video, but you can find a lot of videos online about either DIYing or having an EV charger line installed yourself. It's really not a lot. It's 6 or 8 gauge wire, depending on how long that wire needs to run from the electrical panel. That's probably your biggest expense there on the material side. But the breakers, the J-Box, the NEMA 1450R, for instance, is like $10 on Amazon. The link's below again. But it's really not that much in components. It's really in the wire on the material side, and then it's going to be in the labor on the electrician side to have it installed in the first place. Totally depends on your location and everything. But just to show you, not much goes into the actual install, and it's totally possible on most houses. You just need to make sure your electrical panel has enough power or amperage rating to include another high amperage breaker. And there's so much more to talk about on this subject. I'd love to hear your own stories, whether you're a property owner or even a road tripper in an EV, your experiences with renting other properties, whether it be short-term or long-term. It would help other people know what to do maybe, or also maybe encourage property owners to start installing these on a higher rate so those of us EV drivers can get more benefit. Anyway, put your story in the comments if you'd like to share. It kind of helps everybody and move things along. So I hope this list of benefits and considerations is helpful to you, whether it be residential or commercial. We do work with clients to help you through your own project if you want some help with this. Also check out the other videos on the channel for anything regarding net zero, renovations, sustainability, energy efficiency, renewables, and anything in between, especially with rental property owners like ourselves. And as always, I appreciate your time and thanks for watching.